first one we are going to lead off with is going to be Saquon Barkley. We're not super divided on this one. We are going to be missing a key part to this conversation with Kev having him at 2. He has a video that is up on the YouTube channel if you want to go and see how he really feels about Barkley. Kev is not moving off of him, and he had him as his number 2 before the pup list removal and all that stuff came through. Christian, you have him at 4. Robby and I both have Saquon at 8, and for Fantasy Pros consensus ranking, he is sitting there at 7. So, Christian, you're going to have to kind of be in the driver's seat here without Kev alongside you. But tell us why me and Robby are idiots for having him at 8.
I mean, it's Saquon Barkley. I mean, the guy's a freak. We're not talking about a normal human being here. We're talking about Saquon Barkley. So I think you guys have to start off. Like, I think it's nuts that you guys have Barkley as far back as you do, because we're not talking about a normal human being here. Let me hear it from you guys first.
I will take the mantle here. And again, this is not a we think Barkley will be bad. I think there's just enough risks where if you have him as your number 2 overall player, and for yourself, Christian, a number 4 overall player, I feel much more comfortable with the other backs going in that area. So we're talking about Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, Zeke is up there for me, Derrick Henry. So those are guys that I feel more comfortable with a tier above where I have Barkley in more of the tier below those guys. So just to start out, obviously we have coming off a major injury, right? We're not just talking about, as Cody's pointed out in other videos, it's not just the ACL, it was an MCL, it was a meniscus. It's kind of a full knee injury. And we've seen a ton of stats come out over the years about how it takes a little bit of time for them to get back to full operating capacity, right? A lot of backs never get back to their full operating capacity. We saw AP do it. AP is probably comparable to Saquon, where he's that freak of a human where he can do it for sure. But we definitely have a lot of other guys who didn't get back to that 100% themselves. We just saw him come off the pup list. Sure, there's a little less than a month until the season starts, but I think it'll take time for them to work him in fully. So I think we're starting off the season with him not getting the full workload. So if we're talking about volume and then maybe the efficiency being a little bit down from what we expect with Premier Barkley, that's going to drop him down a little bit with the rankings. And then the big thing for me, even past the injury, is his role in the passing game, right? Like we saw Saquon with Eli Manning being an absolute target hog, 7.5 targets per game. It was fantastic. What did we see when Daniel Jones took the helm? We saw a backtrack in that. He went down to 5.5 targets per game. And that was before they added Kenny Galladay, before they drafted Kadarius Toney. I'm not going to throw out Kyle Rudolph or anything, but they brought in weapons, right? Because they wanted to give Daniel Jones more weapons, which means there's probably going to be a little bit more of a fight for the target share. So I just don't think the target share might not even hit back to the 5.5 targets per game that we saw. That's another issue that I think when you have a true alpha come in with like Kenny Galladay, you're having some issues with that target share. And then third, just the offensive line. Obviously, Barkley is an amazing talent. This is not saying he's going to be a bust at all. But when you have probably what's going to be ranked as a 30 or worse offensive line, maybe even the worst at 32nd, we're talking about guys that were drafted high that have not panned out, just no names on this offensive line. That's just not the combination that you want with an injury, coming off an injury. You're putting a cap on the ceiling for targets, and then you have a poor offensive line play. There's not that worry with some of these other top backs where I'm just going to drop him down a little bit and take some other guys above him.
The only thing that I will add in here, and I actually cannot believe of all people, Robby, that you failed to mention this, Jason Garrett is also the OC. So you want to add to the offensive line woes. You want to add to the target volume not being there. With Garrett, you're talking about a guy who didn't give Zeke more than 40 targets until year 3. And that was his hand was forced at that point too. He did jump all the way up to 90 something targets. Zeke did in 2018, I think, but those 95 targets led the Cowboys. I think that was the year that Amari Cooper came in for half the season. That wasn't in the plans, I don't think, to give Zeke 95 targets that year. The following year, he drops back down to like the 70s. And you had 37-year-old goddamn Jason Witten getting more targets than Zeke did that following year. So that like Robby was saying, when I take my first round pick, I want to feel warm and fuzzy. I want to feel cozy. I want to be able to snuggle up and feel good about that. And with Barkley, there's just enough question marks. If he finishes as a top 5 option, I'm not going to be shocked at all. But if we're talking first round picks, I want to feel more confident, more safe, more secure in those guys. Like I said, for me, it's just a combination of like all the guys I have ahead of him. I feel better about, whether it's volume, the overall offense, offensive line, target ceiling, whatever it is. There's just like certain chinks in the Saquon Barkley armor. Is he a freak? Yes. But we also saw him at Penn State struggle with that offensive line at Penn State going up against defenses like Ohio State, where he wasn't able to always overcome his offensive line issues. So with all that said, Christian, throwing it back to you now that you've had time to sit and stew and think of your rebuttals and whatever smart things you wanna say. What you got?
I don't even need to throw anything out that smart. Again, all the points you guys are making are valid if we were talking about a normal human being, but we're talking about Saquon Barkley. This guy's not a normal human being. So the injury stuff, I'm not concerned with. I mean, this guy is an Adrian Peterson type of guy that he's going to come back from this with no problem at all. The offensive line, I mean, did the Giants have a great offensive line in 2018 when he scored 385 fantasy points? I don't think they did. So to me, this guy is just bulletproof no matter what's happening. I mean, this guy is a generational talent at running back. We've seen him approach 400 fantasy points in a season. I mean, most of the guys we're talking about here are trying to get to 300 points. I mean, this guy has approached a 400-point season. We've seen a ceiling that only Christian McCaffrey has equaled in recent years. I mean, you can't get this type of ceiling from anybody. We're going to talk about some other guys today that we're hoping score 300 points in a season. This guy has 385 as a rookie behind a terrible offensive line. So the Jason Garrett thing, like if you think that Kyle Rudolph is going to get targets that should be going to Saquon Barkley, get out of here. That's insane. Like this isn't the Cowboys drafting Zeke and bringing him up through the system and, making him pay his dues or whatever. I mean, this is Jason Garrett walking into Saquon Barkley. I mean, this guy is a freak. As far as the pass catchers and things of that nature. Yeah, it's great they brought in Kenny Golladay. I'm not one of these people that's just going to be like, oh, an extra guy here. I've still got to give Sterling Shepard these targets, Darius Slayton these targets. All these guys outside of Golladay are just guys. Like Sterling Shepard is what he is. I mean, he's a poor man's Jarvis Landry. Darius Slayton is a one-trick pony. Don't even get me started on Kadarius Toney, one of the worst first-round picks we've ever seen. Evan Ingram doing nothing with so much. I mean, none of these guys are scaring me and getting in Saquon Barkley's way. Sure, Galladay's going to get his, but there is enough to go around for Saquon Barkley to still see the targets that he needs to be a beast in the passing game. We know he's going to get his on the ground. And let's talk about that first year with Daniel Jones. He didn't see the 121 targets that he saw with Eli Manning, but he saw 73 targets in 13 games. I don't see any way that he can't see 80, 90 targets, along with, 1,300 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns. I mean, this is the kind of guy that you just don't overthink it on. I mean, this is a freak right here.
I will say that the 70 targets he got was also in the year that Golden Tate played more games than Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram. If those other guys stay healthy, I don't know. I have a hard time seeing him. Like I think like 70 would probably be like about right. I would think. Should he command more? Absolutely. Should, you know what I mean? But like again, this is Jason Garrett. Like, would it really surprise you if Kyle Rudolph, like if we were slamming our head against the wall because of Jason Garrett, like wanting to get Kyle Rudolph involved?
The only thing I could add to that is that you could see him get 1,300 yards. You could see him get 9 or 10 touchdowns. You could see him get 80 targets and 60 receptions and 500 yards. Like that's what I have for him in my projections. And you could still see him be the running back 5 or 6, assuming that obviously everyone has to stay healthy above him. But you can see him do all that, and he still might not be a top 2 for Kev or a top 4 running back for you. So I guess that's just the one thing, is that this is not us saying that Saquon Barkley will be bad. There's just enough risk and there's enough other talent at running back where you don't need to take him as that running back 2 or that running back 4 because of just some of the concerns that we've laid out.